Okay, so today we're looking at Pauper Illusion Tribal. So most of the illusions in Magic have the same mechanic, which is that whenever they become the target of a spell or ability, you have to sacrifice them, which is obviously a downside, but often to make up for it, the illusions are quite powerful creatures. As you can see here, Phantasmal Bear, it's 1 blue for a 2/2, so quite an aggro little creature. So that's the theme of the deck today. Basically, it uses a hell of a lot of illusion creatures and hopefully tries to use the fact that often they're quite aggro and unbalanced to steal games. We also have Jace's Phantasm, 1 blue for a 1/1 with flying, but it gets +4/+4 as long as an opponent has 10 or more cards in their graveyard. So you sometimes see this card showing up in mill decks. We're obviously not a mill deck, although we do have some mill-related strategies, like we're running 4 Thought Scour, which puts the top 2 cards of a library into a graveyard. So even though we're not actually a dedicated mill deck, it's not impossible for us to get 10 cards in the opponent's graveyard, often from just killing their stuff, their own fetch lands and their own creatures dying, their own spells that they cast. So this card is not terrible and the flying is pretty good. Okay, next up we have our 2-drops. So this one's not particularly amazing, but it's one of the few 2-drops that we have. So it's 2 for a 2/1 with flying, and obviously when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you have to sacrifice it. So nothing amazing here, but the flying is not bad. Okay, here's one of our tribal payoffs, Krovikan Mist. 2 mana for an illusion with flying, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of illusions on the battlefield. So once you have even, 3 illusions on the field, Krovikan Mist turns into quite a decent threat, and it's got flying, so yeah, it's better than it looks. Okay, in terms of our 3 mana illusion, this one's pretty decent. We've got Illusionary Servant, 3 mana for a 3/4 flying, and of course, when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you sack it. So 3 mana for a 3/4 flying in Pauper is a pretty solid body, so I'm pretty happy with this card. Then finally, at the top of our curve, we have 2 copies of Phantasmal Dreadmaw. It's based on one of the greatest Magic cards of all time. So this 4 mana for a 6/6 with Trample, and the downside of having to sack it, but still, 4 mana for a 6/6 with Trample is nothing to laugh at. Okay, then our final creature, I'm not necessarily sold on it, but it's Delver of Secrets. Of course, most people will know this card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you can transform Delver of Secrets, and it transforms into a 3/2 flyer. So we're running quite a lot of instants and sorceries in this deck, so Delver of Secrets is not terrible. So speaking of the instants and sorceries, let's take a look at them. I already mentioned Thought Scour, but we also have, just for a little bit of removal, since we're a mono blue deck, we've got Gutshot. Then of course we have Brainstorm, one of the best cards in Pauper. It's got a lot of synergy with Delver of Secrets as well. You can cast it at the beginning of your upkeep, let's say, and make sure that you have an instant or sorcery on top of your library. And then we also have good old Snap, another Pauper staple, just a very, very solid card, especially when you have a relatively low land count, which we do. We're running 15 basic islands and 3 lonely sandbars for some cycling. I'm a huge fan of these Onslaught cycling cards. Maybe they're not as good as I think they are. It's possible that Mystic Sanctuary or some other blue or island payoff should be the final land, but I haven't done enough testing. Okay, so the current sideboard, we're running good old blue Elemental Blast for red decks. Okay, we also play Anel for boggles and artifact strategies. Then we also have Curfew, which is quite a cool card. 1 blue for an instant. Each player chooses a creature they control, and they return it to their hand. So this is quite nice for playing around Hexproof and Ward and Protection, So decent against Boggles, decent against Guardian of the Guild Pact. I'm also running Dispel as just a more defensive card. And finally, good old Relic of Progenitus, probably the best graveyard hate in Pauper. Okay, so that's the deck. It pretty much began as a meme, but it's actually been better than I thought. It's not amazing, but it has potential, I think. The fact that you have so many flyers is also pretty good. There may be room to experiment with getting some sort of payoff from having flyers. I'm not sure what the best ones in Pauper are. But yeah, that's the deck. If you have ideas for how I could improve it, please let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.